It's just 1 o'clock now. And we're expecting at least 1 or 2 more people. Right. How are you?
I'm doing okay.
Glad to see you here.
How are you holding up?
Good. I just got back from vacation over the weekend, so I'm kind of recharged and
nice.
Ready to be done with the snow.
Yep. Oh, SAP's running soon, so.
Yeah, I'll imagine it'll be running today. It's supposed to be 57 here on Sunday.
Yep. Nice.
All right, I'm going to give it 1 more minute and then we will get started. It took us about 50 minutes to get through everything on the session Tuesday. That included questions and answers. So I don't expect to use this full hour unless there are a bunch of questions. All right, we'll go ahead get started here. Others join in. Mark and Dave, welcome, fellows. All right, I'm going to get started here. Jonathan Tebow is on the call. He's an engineer who works for Efficiency Vermont. He's going to take a few slides partway into the presentation. Jonathan, when I go into presentation mode on the PowerPoint, I can't see the gallery. So if you wouldn't mind taking a look at the chat, and if any questions come up, just flag me and we can stop the presentation and answer questions on the fly. So
will do.
Without further ado, here we go. Good afternoon, everybody. You're seeing my screen okay?
Yes.
Yes, okay, good, thank you. I'm Chuck Clarisi with Efficiency Vermont. I believe everybody on this call knows who I am. We appreciate your time this afternoon. We wanted to take this opportunity to make sure that everybody's well aware on our compressed air offerings for 2022. I think we are going to probably do this annually. Our program in this arena doesn't change too dynamically like our lighting does, so I think once a year will be enough. We'll go through a bunch of information, our prescriptive offerings, our standard offerings, as well as our custom offerings. At any time during the presentation, if you have questions, either just put them in the chat or raise your hand in the Teams forum, and we'll be sure to take your questions right away. So brief agenda. As I put this together, this is targeted specifically for our compressed air system partners. Thinking about our work together, I wanted to make sure that we're all sort of on the same page with goals, that we're helping you, you're helping us, and we're both helping the customer. Talk a real brief bit about end-to-end efficiency in compressed air, the way that we need to go about assessing savings, standard and custom incentives, and then a little bit of time at the end for Q&A. So the goals of our partnership are obviously satisfied customers and partners. We have the energy efficiency network. I think all of our compressed air partners are part of that. If you aren't part of that, please reach out to me and we will get you on that on-ramp and part of the EEN network. That is a pretty well-established partner network, and you are all vital to our success in delivering cost-effective energy saving to the state of Vermont. So your success is equally as important as the end user customer success. We have a pretty mature market here. This is our 22nd year of operation. So we've been working on compressed air systems for quite a while. As we all know, they're very, very energy intensive. And so when you fix things or improve things, there's often very good savings. And that has led us to have a keen focus on the compressed air market. In many cases, we have pretty mature systems, and we're really pursuing excellence at this point, tuning, tweaking, taking the systems to the next level. Sometimes it just means tuning out 1, 2, 3, 4% of system efficiency, but that's a palpable amount of energy. In other cases, we have some, old legacy equipment that, needs to be converted to VFD machines, needs a new dryer. Some systems out there are still ripe for a lot of harvesting of cost-effective energy. But I would say most systems that we work on in the big markets have, really been tended to pretty well by the likes of all of you in our partner network. So what does excellence look like? It looks like all the uptime, flow, pressure necessary for the least amount of kWh possible. We know in your business that uptime, and reliability is a really big component of your service delivery to your customers, and that's vital. They need compressed air to work to operate their plants. Flow, pressure, are things that we're starting to more actively measure and manage. Absent that management, the systems can kind of run wild. They grow into a leaky state. They get more pressures thrown at them, and now they leak even more. So it leads us into the realm of waste elimination, which is really the business that Efficiency Vermont is in. You guys, you folks sell iron, you sell services, you sell pipe upgrades, you sell storage, dryers, etc. And we want to help you do that, because when you sell efficient equipment into this market, it generates the energy savings that we're looking for. And I say purchases here because Efficiency Vermont is really in the business of purchasing wasted energy. We don't sell anything. We sell concepts and theories and best practices and try to get mind share around those things. But at the end of the day, like, our money goes out the door when energy savings comes in the door. And of course, profitability. We are a nonprofit organization funded by the ratepayers of Vermont, but we know all of our partners, the prevailing amount of our partners, are all for-profit businesses. So it's important for us to make sure that, we're helping you find good work that helps you meet your corporate goals. This graphic is pulled from one of our information sheets. It's nothing new to any of you on the call. It simply illustrates the sort of end-to-end efficiency opportunities. You have, of course, the compressor, the dryer, you have storage tank opportunities, no loss drains, all the way down to the sort of quick disconnects and the blow-offs, which we have a lot of in Vermont. So it's an area that we haven't tackled too comprehensively. We know the opportunities are out there, but we really need some partners to help us corral them. For example, I have a customer, a machine shop that has 100 blow-off wands. They're approximately a foot long, and they kind of go into the CNC machines and they blow things off. They were never engineered. We don't know exactly how much air they use. And we have a gut feeling that, there's probably a nozzle out there that might knock down that air 20, 30, 40% and still do an effective job at blowing off the metal parts. But we really need a partner to help do that. So if there's anybody on the call who's interested in pursuing that with us, please reach out to me. And I've got a couple opportunities that I think we can go after right away. Assessing savings. I just wanted to take this moment to just sort of remind folks, partners, when we are in a project mode with you, why we ask so many questions. We are a regulated utility. What that means is that any one of our projects can get selected for post-project audit. When that happens, there's kind of a deep dive by a third-party engineering firm that looks at the aspects of the project. And if there are holes or gaps in the information that our analysis was predicated upon, we can take a hit on that project. We can take a hit on an entire portfolio. So all of our compressed air projects could potentially take a hit. So it drives us to be accurate. We also need to be accurate because we are presenting information to our customers with payback scenarios, and they are making decisions based on that information. So we want to preserve the goodness of our brand. People believe what we say in terms of generating energy efficiency and energy savings. So if we all of a sudden don't become accurate doing that, it starts to erode our value in the marketplace, and that's not what we want to do. We are independent third party, and at the end of the day, we're paying for energy savings, so we need to know what we're paying for. There is a Vermont energy code. It gets refreshed every 5 years or so. I think the most current code was from 2020. Interestingly enough, nothing in industrial process is covered by the energy code. Therefore, an efficient upgrade is not directly defined. So when we are asked to support a system improvement, we need to know one of two things. We need to know the existing equipment and energy use, or we need to know the difference between a common or usual and best alternative when replacing equipment or building a new system. Jonathan will touch on this a little bit later when we get into the custom incentive part, because a lot of the equipment that we support is in the custom realm. And when something is either built new or replaced, we have to ask ourselves, what could the customer replace this with? And then what is the sort of most or more efficient alternative? And that becomes the point of comparison in terms of energy savings. All measures supported by Efficiency Vermont must pass cost effectiveness screening. This holds true for every aspect of our business. It's a net present value calculation that looks at the cost of the measure, the annual savings, and the lifetime of the measure, as well as some other societal benefits. So most things in compressed air in terms of improvements easily pass this calculation, the screening process. I suppose there's probably an opportunity or situation where something might not pass, but in general, it's all goodness in the realm of compressed air. So standard incentives for compressed air. This is on our web. The link is here. I will distribute this deck to everybody after the presentation. You'll see, and if you've worked with us in the last year or two, we are hot to trot on third-party leak surveys, and not just the surveys, but the actual repairs. We've been doing this for quite a while. Last year, we had a conversation about, how many audits have been done and the tags are still in the plant, 1, 2, 3 years later. So we've laid out money to help support the audit, but we haven't garnered the savings because typically the customer hasn't prioritized fixing the leaks. And I get it. It got amplified even more during COVID with staff being out and people being shorthanded. Just keeping the machinery running in these plants is a pretty full-time job for maintenance departments. So fixing compressed air leaks never seems to rise to the top. So in order to sort of get through that barrier and pull the savings in, we added $100 per leak fix with no cap. So if you go into a plant and you provide an audit, we will pay up to $3,500. We'll pay half of that when the report is turned into us. We will pay the other half once at least 50% of the leaks are fixed. If 50% of the leaks fixed means 20 leaks were fixed, we will add in another $2,000 for the leak repairs. So this whole program is designed to be very aggressive and remove almost all, if not all, cost barriers. We have had many examples where this offer pays for the whole shooting match. Unless you have a couple leak repairs that are really hard to get at, or parts are really expensive, $100 a leak with internal labor comes pretty close to covering the cost of the repairs. There have been a few facilities that are so large that a $3,500 audit doesn't really cover all of the plant. In those instances, we try to take a sort of phased approach where we take a $3,500 bite out of the audit opportunity, and then bring that project to a close, make sure that the customer is going to fix the leaks, because to do the plant comprehensively, and spend a lot more money on the audit, if we don't know the customer is going to fix the leaks, like, we're just out the money again. and that's not good business. So that's how we're trying to manage this. In terms of frequency, I think there's something on our website that says, we're recommending every 2 years. That's sort of for public consumption. We do know that there are plants out there that shake themselves into a leaky situation every 6 to 12 months. If we have a good flow meter in place, that's kind of our scoreboard to tell us what the resting plant leak rate is. And, if it starts climbing to 30, 40, 50 CFM or more, we know it's time to double back with another audit. You folks are on the ground in these plants all the time, so we look to you as much as we are looking to the customer directly to tell us when it's time to do another audit. Just bring the data to us and sort of illustrate that yes, it is time to do one again, and we'll support it the best we can. Flow meters are another standard offer for systems 50 horse and above. We will provide 100% meter cost reimbursement. This is intended to be the sort of standard CDI type of meter. We're not beholden to just one manufacturer, but we do see a lot of CDI meters in Vermont. It's simply the flow meter itself. CDI and others now have options to add on pressure transducers and even Wi-Fi enable the whole thing. We like that a lot. It adds cost for sure, but if we have a customer that's really invested in actively managing their compressed air system, I encourage you to have that conversation with them about adding active monitoring to the system, and then engage Efficiency Vermont to help support the cost of it. We're not going to make a promise that we're going to pay 100% of it, because we probably won't. But on a case-by-case basis, we wanted to support it at a level that makes sense for the customer. And finally, in the standard offers, rotary screw vane compressors with VFDs. We love VFDs. I love VFDs probably as much as anybody on this planet. They're fantastic at modulating motor speed, and we pick up lots of energy savings with it. So we have aggressive rebate at $150 a horsepower for VFD machines in the 10 to 100 range. We will still support ones larger than that. It'll just be on a custom basis. I think I went through most of this, but there is information on our website. There's a marketing slick that has all of the information for our leak audit and repair program. Again, this is designed to be aggressive and really remove any barriers that a customer would have. We'll even do the third-party rebate form. So as long as the customer signs off on the third-party rebate form, that enables us to pay you directly for the audit. But the same parameters, like we'll pay half of it up front, and we'll pay half when 50% of the leaks are fixed. So if you have hesitation that the customer's not going to follow through on the leak repair, you may not want to be paid directly from us, because we won't pay the second half of the audit until 50% of the leaks are fixed. It's not really mentioned or called out, but I know all of you know this. When systems leak, the natural reaction is to throw pressure at it. When that happens, we're obviously, the leaks are costing even more. So system pressure reset at the end of the correction, you may or may not be there. If you're just going in to do the audit and you're not doing the repairs, you may not be around for when the repairs are done. But if a system's at 115 pounds and nothing on the plant floor needs more than 80 or 85, when all the leaks are fixed, it stands to reason we can drop that pressure back down. So if you're not, it's just good to remind the customer of that. It's also on Efficiency Vermont to remind them of it, because it's kind of the icing on the cake for the CFM reduction. Probably only other really caveat I want to mention here is that for load, no load machines, the systems must have at least 5 gallons of storage per CFM in order to qualify for the leak audit program offer. And of course, good to remind customers and partners that we're paying $100 for every leak repair. All right, at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Jonathan to take us through the next, I think, three or four slides, and then I'll wrap it up at the end, and we'll take any questions. So, Jonathan,
thanks, Chuck. My name is Jonathan Tebow. I'm an energy consultant with Efficiency Vermont. I'm going to go through, I guess, some of our more detailed offers here that Chuck kind of gave us a high-level overview of. Most of you, or some of you might be familiar with these, but we're just going to kind of recap what the opportunity here is and why we're supporting it. So as Chuck mentioned, VFD screw compressors is one of our big ticket items. We'll support any VFD operated screw compressors in the 10 to 100 horsepower range with a standard incentive offer of $150 per horsepower. Interesting to note, we will also support no load compressors when they are paired. If you have a multi-compressor system and it's paired with a VFD machine, there's the opportunity to also support alternative compressors as long as it's the most efficient operating configuration. So that's really what we're trying to drive home here is we're trying to basically support the best efficiency practices for compressed air systems. Moving along those lines, refrigerated dryers are what we are trying to support. Cycling refrigerated dryers specifically, we're trying to support for compressed air drying. When a customer needs a lower dew point than what a refrigerator dryer can offer, we will support desiccant dryers so long as they are a externally heated blower purge type system, and ultimately with dew point control too would be an added benefit and feature that we would look to support there. Standard heatless desiccant dryers or even external heated but compressed air purge dryers we don't support, so really the only option on the desiccant side is those turbo blowers that are externally heated, and then the cycling refrigerated dryers is probably going to take up the lion's share of the dryer market for compressed air systems. On the drain side, we support no loss drains, or zero loss drains versus timed drains. So some of these come through in a standard package. Other ones we're looking to retrofit on the floor. So if you're in there doing a leak audit and you see a customer has 4 or 5 drains throughout their facility, if they're on a timer, that's something that we would look to basically offer an incentive for to upgrade that drain from a time drain to a no loss drain, just because, as we all know, the condensate might not be in a line, it might not need to open, it's just a loss of air. So that's another standard offer that Efficiency Vermont offers, and it's supported at $100 per no loss drain replaced or installed. Go ahead, Chuck. And feel free to interrupt if there's any questions out there. High efficiency air and training nozzles, blow off guns and air knives. As Chuck mentioned, sometimes we're in facilities and you'll see air wands and equipment like that where it's used for cleanup or whatever it may be. And every time they pull that trigger, it blasts a lot of air from the system and ultimately expels a lot of energy. So this incentive and targeted approach is really looking at minimizing the amount of air used in applications such as that. So whether it's a drying line for like cans or bottles, blow-off guns, air knives, we're looking to add nozzles or add some type of flow concentrating device that would perform the same task with a lesser amount of air. So engineered nozzles is really what we're trying to support here. Increased storage for load, no load operation. If you have a customer that you're working with and they use load, no load compressors, if they don't have adequate storage, and what we would consider to be adequate storage is 5 gallons per CFM or greater, if they're not at that level, Efficiency Vermont can offer a custom incentive to support additional storage to bring them up to that level of storage. And the purpose there is really just to reduce the amount that the machine cycles and save some energy. So, and then there is looking at the demand side. One thing that we're trying to stress here is inappropriate uses of compressed air and eliminating those. So whether it's a sparging application or mixing some type of suspended solids, if it's in a fluid, Those are generally a poor application of compressed air and a very inefficient, energy-intensive way to do that operation. We would preferably support a blower or a mixer, paddle wheel, whatever it may be. We would look at an option to replace that application of compressed air, as it does use a lot of energy. Vacuum generation is similar. Sometimes we'll see these as Venturi type units where compressed air is used to generate a vacuum. Again, a more efficient practice would be to install a vacuum pump. So that would be the efficient measure there. And then electric cabinet cooling. If you have a lot of power electronics that are generating heat, sometimes compressed air is used to have a cooling effect on those cabinets, but we know that that's an expensive way to do so. So these are typically 3 applications of compressed air that we would qualify as inappropriate use, and we're looking for your help in really flagging and identifying these when you're walking through facilities, and bring them back to us and ask, can we support alternatives? And generally we can. So go ahead, Chuck. And then pressure reduction, in addition to, pressure resets after leak audits. Sometimes pressure reductions can be achieved through the use of lower pressure drop filters and equipment. So it might be through an upgrade on a filter, a dryer system, or the piping itself. Sometimes we see that the piping is not appropriately sized, and so there's significant pressure drop between the supply side and the endpoint use, which leads to having to bump the entire system pressure up to meet the set point at the end use. So correcting issues that are driving artificially high pressure in the system is another thing that we're looking to address. Specialty compressor upgrades. So in some applications, if you have a high amount of compressed air need or demand, a centrifugal compressor may be the most efficient way to get there. Those are typically high air users. In the state of Vermont, the most common application for that would be snowmaking systems at ski resorts, just due to the pure CFM that they need. But other large manufacturers in the state may also exhibit similar demand and use needs. And so we would support centrifugal compressors on a custom basis. The point here is really just to mention that while we advertise our VFD controlled screw compressors as our kind of flagship program, we will offer custom support for other compressed air technologies, so long as it's best in class is really what we're trying to message. And then the automatic or smarter controls and solenoids for compressed air systems. This is, again, looking more at the demand side. So think of like a CNC machine where they have compressed air that's used to keep, an optical eye or some measurement system clean from chips and debris, and there's a purge of compressed air that blows on that. If the machine's not running, but the compressed air is, that's waste. So what we've supported in the past, and would in this case, is installing some valves, solenoids on the compressed air line that's tied to the machine. So if the machine is off, the air is off. And that's just, again, a way to kind of manage the demand side air use and isolate equipment that's not in use. Another application is dust collection systems. Sometimes we see that air is used to pulse the filters in those systems and keep the actual cake, the dust cake on the filter, to a level that doesn't increase the static pressure drop across the filters. Compressed air is used to kind of keep those filters clean, but sometimes it's used excessively, actually, and to the point where it's purging or blowing those filters off more than need be, and it's using excessive air to do so. So in that case, the efficient option would be having a differential pressure gauge across the bag house, and using the differential pressure to signal when air is needed. A pulse of air is needed to blow those bags off, and really control the system rather than just have it, again, on like a timed function, like the drains, as we discussed. Go ahead, Chuck. And then I think this wraps it up for me, but the final things to say here is heat recovery. This is an area we are interested in and trying to more actively support. This could be both water and air cooled compressors. Water cooled, it would be really interesting and appealing to us if it's at a production site and that heat can be used for a production process that's 8760 or around the clock, or they have a boiler and need to preheat water for the boiler year round. That energy from the air compressor, that heat energy, is then used in an advantageous way. Similarly, on the air-cooled compressor side, ducting that heat back into the building during the winter months is a measure we would support. So if that requires additional ductwork or dampers, high static fans, things like that, that would enable heat recovery, that's a measure we could support. And similarly, ducting that heat outside during the summertime, if the neighboring space is air conditioned, is something we would also support because that takes load off of the air handling units that are trying to cool the space. Supply side audits with energy savings calculations. So as Chuck mentioned, one of our standard offers right now is leak audits. We are looking to you guys as the vendors to look at leaks. And then also, if you offer the service, looking at what's in the compressor room. Can there be strategic efficiency upgrades made throughout the facility that would help these customers lower their kilowatt use per ACFM of air? The demand side audit as well. So we're trying to think comprehensively, on both sides of that compressor room wall, inside the compressor room and then outside. During your walkthroughs, are you identifying excessive pressure drop as mentioned? Would a pipe upgrade help? Would filtration systems or strategic storage or other ways to save energy make sense? And so really what we're trying to get at there is you guys are the eyes and ears inside these buildings, much more so than we are and the professionals at this. And so we're hoping that we're to try and get some feedback from you, what you're seeing in the field, and pair it up with some numbers, hopefully. So if you're seeing these things and you can help us identify these measures would correct a problem and save X amount of energy, that's great. That's something we can take to the bank. So the energy savings calculations there is something that if you can provide those, it helps grease the skids for this. Otherwise, give us a call and myself or some of our colleagues might also be able to help in that effort to identify the energy savings for some of these opportunities. And lastly here is flow, pressure, and power monitoring. So this is really just building out the visibility around these systems. We know they use a lot of energy. The customer most of the time knows they use a lot of energy, but maybe not, they don't know exactly how much energy they use. And so providing, the customer with flow meters, pressure transducers, power meters, that's the sweet spot when you get all three. Sometimes, a single point of those is enough to just get enough interest and traction. Like a flow meter will tell you a lot about the leakiness of your system. But we're really trying to bolster an effort here to improve the visibility into these systems for customers so that they can more actively and proactively manage them and not wait for a problem to manifest itself physically in the system before calling somebody, because we know at that point it's already wasted a lot of energy. So we will offer custom support for metering and monitoring applications, as is shown here. And I think that about wraps it up for my section. I'll hand it back to you, Chuck.
Thanks a lot, Jonathan. I really appreciate that. I think I just have a couple more slides here. I just want to talk about additional opportunities beyond what we've already covered today, and that was a pretty comprehensive effort through compressed air systems. But at the end of the day, we can support anything that cost effectively and demonstratively saves kWh or BTU. So whether it's system efficiency that results in electric savings, or it's heat recovery that results in BTU offsets for their heating system or process heating, as long as it passes cost effectiveness screening, we can support it. So You all are the experts out there in compressed air systems. So if you have ideas that you feel will be energy savers and we don't have them listed out or aren't pursuing them, bring them to us. We'd love to get behind them if we can. There are 4 sort of document spaces on our website. There's a compressed air system landing page. It just talks about sort of general details around compressed air systems. There's a leak audit and repair information sheet. And then there's a sample record. It's a simple Excel spreadsheet that lays out the information that we're looking for when you do audits. Ultimately, we want, a list of leaks with decibels by CFM. It would be nice if you documented the audit device that you're using and also note the baseline system pressure. I don't know that those last 2 are asked for, but they do help us sort of corroborate, because as I said earlier, any one of these projects can get pulled for audit. And if we don't have good documentation in place, like we are open for, sort of some demerits on the project, and that can trickle across into the entire portfolio. And then the last link here is the industrial standard offers. Sean, I see you're on the line. There's a variety of things on there. That first graphic that I presented early on with the VFD compressors and the support for the flow meters is on this industrial standard offer sheet, along with things like support for steam pipe insulation and steam trap audits and a few other things that pertain to manufacturers. So good information for you all to have. Okay, that brings us to the end of our presentation. It is 1:37 right now. I'm going to stop sharing and come back on screen. Are there any questions? Anything come up in the chat? Looks like we have mostly internal folks with the exception of Sean and Jeff. So Sean and Jeff, do you have any questions? What do you think of the presentation? And you guys both work in other states with other state utilities. So I want to make sure that the lines of communication are open for any offering improvements that you may think we should consider. What are other states doing that has been really successful with you that we might replicate? Those are bits of information we'd love to hear back from you on.
Yeah, I can jump in here. So for me, there's not a lot of compressed air programs anywhere really. So this is kind of refreshing. The steam traps are everywhere, but I have the only one that's ever done anything is Eversource in Massachusetts, and it's very one-off. They find a big customer and they say, I'll pay for 100% of this survey because we want Harvard Medical School or whoever, some big customer that wants this done. They'll do that, but they don't pay for any, well, I think they do, but I think the big thing that we see is repairs. There's a tough, you'd mentioned it in the presentation. The actual implementation of the repairs is the tough part. And then, that's where it kind of goes into the ether. I don't know what happens there, but every other utility company does not do anything. They won't even hear it. You say, hey, I got, compressed air survey here. Would you give any incentives? We just get a flat out no right off the bat. So, it's great that you're doing it, but unfortunately, I don't have any advice or any information on it because you're the only ones that are really doing it. So I think it's just great that you are.
I appreciate that. Thanks, Sean. Jeff, how about you? You get around a fair bit in New England. What are you seeing out there that we're maybe not doing and could be doing?
No, I applaud it. You think you were talking earlier about having VSD compressor and then a load no load and mixing those two together. And I think as we're seeing in future proofing, usually when you're designing systems, at least prevailing in the marketplace is to future proof. And I think having multiple compressors with the volatility in the world right now, that having the multiple compressed air system really keeps you really on the perfect energy curve and, downsize proof and future proof. So I'm really happy that you mentioned that and not resistant to that. That really seems to be what we're seeing, at least in the systems we're designing. That's becoming really a prevalent design critique.
That's good to know. Thank you. All right, Jeff or Sean, if you don't have anything else, internal folks, colleagues, Mark, Adam, Dave, Lisa, any of you have any questions before we sign off? All righty. Happy to give everybody 20 minutes back in their day.
All righty. Have a good afternoon.
All right, you guys too. Take care.
Thank you. Take care.